hopefully you can fit them kind of on the top of your paper, okay, to be able to do these. Okay, well, let's review. If I'm given 2 points, how do I find the slope? Not slope-intercept form of a line. Not a slope-intercept form of a line. There you go, yep. Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. Okay, so that's how we're going to find slope. To tell if I have congruence, we're going to have to use the distance formula. Anybody have any clue what the distance formula is? It's a giant square root sign. The square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, make sure you write those down correctly. Sometimes when I'm walking around, I notice that some of our issues is that the fact that we don't write our formulas down correctly. So that's why we don't get our correct answers, because we don't have the right formula. Craziness. No. Alright, so both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. It's going to make us a parallelogram. Okay? So if AB is congruent to who? DC. And who else? AB is congruent to BC. Then I've got a parallelogram. Okay? To tell if those are congruent, which one of those formulas am I going to have to use? Distance. Okay? If we're talking congruence of sides, we're talking the distance between the 2 points. So the distance between AB, the distance between BC. Okay? If we're talking parallel, okay, so now if AB is parallel to DC, who else has to be parallel? AD would have to be parallel to BC. And if we're looking at whether or not they're parallel, I'm going to use, now I'm going to use the slope formula. Okay, and then if you remember, there was one more little property that proved whether or not it was a parallelogram. If it was one pair of opposite sides that are congruent and parallel. Okay, so if AB is congruent to DC, okay, if AB is congruent to DC, and AB is parallel to DC, okay, then I've got a parallelogram. So to get congruence, I've got to use the distance formula. To get whether or not they're parallel, I have to use slope. So in this one, you've got to use both distance and slope. The nice part about your assignment is it tells you what to use. Oh, slow down there. Okay, so it says, let's prove it using the distance formula. Okay, so I would draw your parallelogram to see what sides we're dealing with. A, and just one order, B, C, D. Okay, so the first distance I'm going to need is what? AB. Okay, so I'm going to write over here, I'm going to write AB equals, because I need to know, number one, you're going to have to show your work, and number two, I need to know what you are talking about. So we're going AB equals, And then we've got this distance formula, so I'm using A and I'm using B. Because AB would be AB. Yeah, we're catching on this morning. Okay? X2 is 1 minus -7 turns into a +7 squared plus y2, 2 minus y1, 4 squared equals, what's 1 plus 7? 8 squared? 64, right? So 64 plus 2 minus 4. 2 squared, or, well, 2 minus 4 is -2. Squared is 4. So this gives me the square root of 68. And just leave it like that. You don't have to put it into a decimal. You don't even have to punch it into your calculator. Just leave it as the square root of 68. Okay? Because now we have to see if AB is congruent to who? BC. So let's check BC. So BC equals square root. So I'm using D and C this time. X2, 1 minus 9 squared plus plus -8, minus -8, yep. So 1 minus 9, -8 squared is, 64 plus -6 plus 8. 2 squared is 4. 4 gives us, so we have the square root of 68. So are these two congruent? So we're good with those two. Okay, but now I only have one, that's just one pair of sides, right? So now I've got to find the other pair of sides. So one side that I need is AB. Now I'm using A and D. So square root of x2 is 1 plus 7 squared plus -4 squared, because it's a minus in our distance formula, equals square root of 1 plus 7 squared, 64 plus -6 minus 4, 10, well, it's not 10, it's -10 squared is 100, so we get the square root of 164. Okay, be careful with that. Make sure you've got your square roots on there. Okay, we have to check to see if AD is congruent to who? BC. So now we've got to use BC. The square root of 9 minus 1 squared plus -2 squared. 9 minus 1 squared. 64 plus -8 minus 2. -10 squared. 100. And I get square root of 164, right? So are those two sides congruent? Yep. So is it a parallelogram? So I can say yes. A, B, C, D is a parallelogram. not congruent, what would I say? I would say, no, it's not a parallelogram. Okay? So then, if you flip it over, okay, the second part says we're going to use the slope formula. So now I have, who do I have? W, X, Y, Z. Right? So who do we have to check to see who has the same slope? Wx. So Wx equals, now what's my slope formula?
Y2 minus Y1.
Okay, so we want y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So my y2 is negative 6 minus, so that turns into a plus 4 over 1 plus 7, because it's 1 minus a negative 7. So on top I have negative 2 over, which gives me negative 1/4 for Wx. And Wx has to be equal to who? Yz. Oh, yep. So Yz equals 12 plus 13 over 1 minus 5. So on top I have over, are they the same? So we're good with those two. Okay, who else has to be congruent? Okay, so let's go WZ. WZ, so W and Z, you got, what? Oh, I got the wrong one. Yep, negative 12 over 7. On top I've got negative 8 over 8, which is this. Is negative 1. And WZ goes with, alright, so XY is over, so on top I have negative 7 over 4. Are those two equal? No. Those two aren't equal, so Wx, Yz is not a parallelogram. Wow, that's not even close. That's not going to make that way. That's not a parallelogram. Okay? And then the next part, okay, the nice part is, I will tell you this, they are going to have you use the top and the bottom. Okay, they're not going to make you check all 4 sides. So I've got J, K, L, M. Okay, and this time it's that distance and the slope. Okay, so we're checking JK. What do you want to do first? Distance or slope? It doesn't matter to me. Distance? Alright. Okay, so JK. Negative 5 plus 9 squared plus. Come on, guys, participate. 1 plus 2 squared. So negative 5 plus 9. 4 squared is 16 plus 9, yep. Gives us square root of 25, which is what? 5, yeah. May as well reduce that since it's perfect square. Okay, we have to check JK versus LM. Okay, so if I'm doing LM, what do I have? -3, -3, -1 squared plus 7 plus 4 squared equals -3 minus 1, -4 squared, 16 plus, okay, so -3 squared is 9, gives me square root of 25, which is 5. So those are equal, right? And then we have to check the what? Gotta check the slope. Okay, so JK for slope, what's going on top? 1 plus 2 over -5 plus 9. 1 plus 2 gives me 3 over 4. Positive 4, yep. So I've got a slope of 3/4. And then I've got to check it versus LM. What's on top? Over. So on top I have over -4. Now some of you are going to look at that and you're going to be like, those aren't equal. Well, what's negative divided by negative? We still have a positive 3/4. So our goes congruent. So is this parallelogram?